For your information, 53 people registered to this webinar. A majority of you are enterprise or business architects. Some of you are business analysts, solutions IT architects, and consultants. You are from everywhere in the world, including the USA, Europe, Canada, Brazil, Australia, and India. I'm a little surprised by that. Finally, a majority of you work for consulting firms or financial institutions. Today, we'll be talking about the following subjects. I promise to be brief about Iris Business Architect and myself. We'll prioritize on item 2 to 12. And at the end there, item 12, if we've got time, I'll answer some questions. Optimizing priorities is a big challenge. Today, during this presentation, I'll put you into context on how enterprise and business architecture can increase your odds of not forgetting any major opportunities in crafting your roadmap. Then we'll talk about the 9 methods I use to prioritize initiatives. First, let's talk a little about Iris Business Architect and myself. These are some of our clients. We have quite a few financial institutions that are clients of ours. We also have government agencies, quite a few of them. We also have, most of our clients are either in Europe or in the USA. Some are in Canada. We offer not just a software application, we also offer business architecture frameworks. These are the 4 that we currently offer. Healthcare, insurance, and retail should be coming soon, sometime in 2019. Today, many diagrams in this webinar are based on financial services, the financial services architecture framework. It should be noted. And finally, I'd like to say that we will be offering soon webinars, of 7 webinars of 2 hours each about each of those frameworks, entitled Digital Transformation Using Business Architecture. This is a little about me. I've been around for a long time. Aside from doing business architecture consulting and marketing for Iris Business Architect, I contribute to CIO.com. I have written so far 11 articles, and I have close to 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. Let's talk about optimizing priorities. Most large organizations are undergoing major traditional transformation that will last for at minimum another 10 years. Successful enterprises will rightfully claim that their organizational transformation never ends and has become a continuous process. Yet capital and human resources are very finite, and all initiatives to be delivered should generate a good return on investment. Let's now talk about the challenge of optimizing priorities in an organization. Not every initiative can be done at once. Are we sure that the current list of initiatives is not missing any critical initiative? Which initiative should be delivered first? Some should never be done at all. But which one? Enterprise and business architecture can address these issues and questions. There are 3 major disconnects today in most corporations according to the Harvard Business Review. First of all, 66% of HR and IT organizations develop strategic plans that are not linked to the enterprise strategy, which is a major sin. Second, 95% of employees in most organizations have no clue what their organization's strategy is. Third, only 25 to 30% of business transformation initiatives are successful over the long term. Business architects, enterprise architects, and change management experts can justify their existence just by improving these ratios, by clarifying and disseminating the strategies and business outcomes throughout the enterprise, both vertically and horizontally. It's not an easy job to do. It requires very good objective-driven and communication skills. Business architects and enterprise architects are stuck between IT and business stakeholders that are very different beasts and really do not understand each other very well. This picture is still fairly accurate. In most organizations, this is how IT and business folks perceive each other. Business people perceive IT employees like Martians. As for IT employees, they perceive business people like cavemen or dinosaurs. And by the way, my son once reminded me that I was the dinosaur there with the glasses in the back. I'm no exception, it seems. Business architecture involves usually the four maps mentioned in the gray circle of this diagram in the Business BizBook guide published by the Business Architecture Guild. They are capabilities, organization, information, and value stream mapping. Other domains in the yellow section of this circle can also be examined by business architects. In this webinar, we'll be mentioning and examining most of them, as you can see, with those red squares. Business architecture is different than enterprise architecture. Business architecture is a subcategory of enterprise architecture by being one of its four domains. Too often, business architecture is done last after the other three technical domains have been mapped. It should be the reverse. Enterprise architect should always start with business architecture, not vice versa. Otherwise, finding your priorities will always be impossible. Enterprise and business architecture is involved in all of these 5 steps from strategy to agile delivery or initiative. By examining 8 methods, we'll be able to prioritize optimally the capabilities that are required and or problematic for your organization and on which you will be setting your initiatives. Implementing business architecture can take as little as 6 months if you have a key business stakeholder sponsoring for you. It involves these 3 steps. Phase 1, organize the practice and select an initial initiative. Step 2, map and measure from strategies to the right capabilities using several scenarios to finally select a final roadmap. And then phase 3, which is often forgotten by a business and enterprise architect, but yet is critical if you want to deliver the right strategic project and initiatives. The business architects and enterprise architects' job also needs to make sure that the business architecture model and final roadmap is known to business and IT stakeholders involved in initiatives. Furthermore, the architects need to know how to calculate ROI and measure the outcomes of their initiatives. You will notice that among the tasks involved, the enterprise and business architecture, one is entitled Prioritize and Assess Capabilities. It's one of many, as you can see. While doing enterprise business architecture, 12 domains are often cross-mapped, as shown in this diagram. Based on these 12 domains mentioned in the previous slide, 66 cross-map could be examined in total. Most of them do not make sense. This is why we are only going to examine 12 of them today. Let's examine first the first method entitled Value Streams to Enabling Capabilities Cross-Mapping. Still today, at most half of business architects use value stream. It's probably a lot lower than that. Enterprise architects, most of them have no clue what value streams are. Because of their lack of knowledge about value stream, they are most probably missing a lot of profitable initiative that should be among an organization's priorities. Value streams are an ideal method to transform your business and best provide value to your stakeholders. It allows you to have a better highlight about your most important business capabilities. We show here various important value streams that a financial institution will usually provide to its customers, which is the triggering stakeholder. There are many more in our financial services business architecture framework. Let's focus on one of them, the acquire a customer for a product funnel. A value stream is simply made of value stages as shown here. In this case, the acquire customer for a product value stream is a fundamental one. It is associated to the funnel of pipeline within most customer relationship management software applications. This is the same acquire customer for a product value stream, but with more details. It shows that the value stage is triggered by the millennials customer segment and potential clients. The entry criteria and exit criteria of each value stage are mentioned. It also mentions that this value stream delivers the all-inclusive financial services to millennials value proposition, which will be mentioned later in the business model canvas. Each value stage of a value stream can be associated to its enabling business capabilities. This allows to highlight the important business capabilities from the others. From several hundreds of capabilities, you can now focus on these 26. Please note that in reality, it is not uncommon to have more capabilities enabling a value stream. Let's now examine a second method entitled Value Streams to Participating Stakeholders Cross-Mapping. Each value stage of a value stream can be associated to its participating stakeholders. This allows to highlight the participating stakeholders that provide value at each stage of a value stream. Please note that value streams are not to be confused with business processes. They have no decision points and no multiple paths, and do not serve the same purpose. One is to find value that may benefit both customers and the bottom line of an organization, and process is more like how can we do it afterward in extreme details. Some process experts believe that level 1 and level 2 business processes are identical to value streams and that the same result can be accomplished using them instead. I personally believe that value streams and business processes are not to be confused. Value stages are used to elaborate the stages that provide value to the triggering stakeholder, often the client or a partner. Business processes instead try to explain how the organization will provide value. In brief, value streams allow to find and focus on their enabling capabilities, and value streams with their enabling capabilities and participating stakeholders enables you to build more accurate requirements and processes. Let's now examine a third method entitled Capability to Organization Cross-Mapping. This is a business unit called Wealth Management with its divisions, Sales and Operations, Credit Office, Product Office, Portfolio Management, and Support Services. Each division delivers specific capabilities. Sales and Operations delivers 5 of them. Credit Office 1, etc. The same cross-map diagram can be done for each business unit. Please note that relationships between a business unit and a capability can include the following. perform, delivers, owns, defines, or uses. As a rule of thumb, remember the following: any use capability should ideally have only one business unit owner, someone responsible for the capability. If there are two, odds are much lower that they'll take the capability seriously, and there may be vicious fights between two business units, and it needs to be solved. Make sure that important capabilities are owned by a business unit. Sometimes, weirdly enough, no one owns a capability, and it's a major one, or it is to become a major one, and this is a real big problem. Many business units can use the same capability. There's nothing wrong with that. Do not waste time and resources on unused capabilities, or use your resources at a minimum level. Let's now examine method 4, capability to applications cross-mapping, which is probably the most used method among enterprise architects. This one is known. Enterprise architects use that a lot, and that's by far the most notorious cross-map between capabilities and assets. And because enterprise architects know this one, often they will think that they are complete business architects, and I believe otherwise. This diagram shows the percentage of the total application supporting a particular capability. It is not uncommon to have a very little number of capabilities being supported by over half of all applications made available by an organization. It is doubtful that all these applications supporting a particular capability should be required. Relationships between applications and capabilities usually include supports and is required by. Rules of thumb are as follows. A high number of applications supporting the same capability is usually the results of very autonomous business units and or mergers and acquisitions. Build detailed lower level sub-capabilities. Examine which applications address all sub-capabilities before lowering the number of applications supporting a capability. But when there are a high number of applications for a particular capability, odds are very high that it should be lowered. To distinguish the current state of a capability instances may be necessary to build scenarios before choosing a final roadmap. Sometimes a capability instance may be necessary for each business unit or an organization. Let's now examine the fifth method, which is called information concepts to data models cross-mapping, which is seldom used by business architects, and this is a shame. A little like method 4, this diagram shows the percentage of the total databases supporting a particular information concept. Again, it is not uncommon to have a very little number of information concepts being supported by over half of all applications made available by an organization. It is doubtful that all these databases supporting a particular information concept should be required. As a rule of thumb, the higher number of databases and data assets supporting the same information concept is the result of very autonomous business units and or mergers and acquisitions. And cleanup has not been made. An architect could build detailed lower level information concepts, examine which databases, data assets address all the sub-information concept before eliminating the duplicate database or data asset supporting an information concept, and come up with a master database. We're now up to method 6, which is entitled Value Stages to Participating Stakeholders Cross-Mapping. It may be the I may be the only one using this method. I've not seen any literature about this method anywhere. This is a tree diagram with a list of managers from A to F. It lists for each of them a series of value stages where they are participants. As you can see, some managers seem to be much more busy than others. Stakeholders do not need to be managers. They can be partners, employees, vendors, etc. And you can use a similar diagram for each types of stakeholders. And it should be noted that the delivery manager, who seems to have no value stage linked to them, may be doing a lot more than you may think, but it's just that you've not built your business architecture model and you have not built value streams enough to show what he's doing yet. Here's another tree diagram with employees instead. Client advisors working for the organization seem to play an essential part in the creation of value for the organizations. We may ask ourselves, are they trained enough? Should they be specialized? But in this particular example, they sure seem to be very busy. There's a 7 method, which is called requirements cross-map to various business architecture domains. Here is how a user story, often used by business analysts and requirement managers, could be written using business architecture elements that are made available to business analysts by business architects and their business architecture meta model. All important words in this user story are elements of or business objects of the business architecture model. The user story is very detailed and includes 15 elements. Some of these elements are capabilities, information, stakeholders, or process, values. It could have also included specific elements of the strategy or motivation maps. Having a decent business and enterprise architecture model in place and made available to business analysts is certain to cut drastically the time used by business analysts and business stakeholders in gathering info to list accurate requirements. The higher the number of strategic elements this requirement involves, the more important should this requirement become. Publishing detailed business architecture models and a selected roadmap allows business analysts to perform quicker and with more accuracy. Epic and user stories can be built much more rapidly in an agile context using elements from the business architecture model. Business analysts can also provide feedback to business architects about inaccuracies and necessary precisions relevant to some of the elements within the business architecture model. This happens a lot, so that you know. Having feedback from business analysts will make it possible sometimes to reorder the priority list of initiatives. Method 8, various capability measurement techniques. Let's switch to the other slide. Each capability can be measured based on a performance heat map or any other kind of measurements, where red and orange capabilities, for example, require special attention and is a strong signal that fixing this capability may be a priority. If you're doing enterprise or business architecture and you're not using measurements, in my own opinion, you're wasting your time. There are numerous measurement methods. Many of them can apply to capabilities: business complexity, business value, capability maturity, readiness, reliability level, etc., etc., etc. Measurements can be shown in various ways, as shown here. If you're showing measurements to business stakeholders, usually they'll prefer simple ones. This one, this one, this one. If you're showing measurements to technical folks, they like this stuff, very complicated stuff. But you know, understanding them precisely is very difficult, and making decisions out of them is sometimes a little confusing. But this is my humble opinion, and use what sticks, whatever it is, wherever, to whatever business stakeholders you're talking to. Regarding the value stream acquire a customer for a service triggered by millennials shown earlier in this presentation, here are the enabling capabilities. Some are of higher priority than others. The one in red are of highest priority. The one in green are not a priority or could be even discarded. Here, the capabilities regarding the value stream acquire a customer for a service triggered by millennials are measured by their business complexity. 5 capabilities are of very high or high business complexity. Here are again the same capabilities ranked by business complexity versus priority. Business complexity is the top bars, and priority is represented by the lower bars. You should automatically discard capabilities that are of low priority and high business complexity. There are none in this example. Building the transaction-based mobile banking application will be the most critical capability for this bank while targeting millennials. It is very complex to deliver and of very high priority. Capabilities can be measured in multiple ways. Here they are measured by 4 different metrics. It's clear that the mobile transaction management capability is a problem in this example, no matter how you cut it and measure it. Let's now examine the 9th method, strategy and product models. There are tools that allow business architects to make sure that their organizations become more customer-driven, like, for example, the business model canvas and the customer value mapping, which is sometimes called, or often called, the value proposition canvas. All I'll say is that the key activities building block in a business model canvas can be related to capabilities. As for the key resources, assets, building blocks, it can be mapped to stakeholders or assets like software applications in a business architecture model. We have an entire course dedicated to this and in our webinars. As for the value propositions building block, it can be linked to a customer value map shown here. Once needs, gains, and pains for each targeted customer type or persona are addressed, the business architect can start planning which capabilities, initiatives, business units, information are required to deliver properly the products and services of a value proposition for each targeted persona. Defining strategies can be done with business model canvas, as we've said. You have more details here relating the financial services banking example. And you can see here the key partners, which are quite a few, key activities, key resources and assets. This is where you'll find enterprise architects are very accustomed to. Value propositions, which shouldn't be made of just products, but usually a combination of products and services. Customer relationships are there, and channels, which can be bank branches, ATMs, call centers. Customer segments. This can vary a lot from one financial institution to another one. In this case, there's about 10 of them. And then you can include cost. In this case, there are interest expenses, etc., etc. For the next slide, we'll be using value propositions and customer segments and creating a customer value map. This is a very detailed customer value map. They include two main sections: the customer profile, which links to one customer segment or persona, and the value proposition profile. The customer profile for each customer segment or persona is made of needs, gains, and pains. The value proposition profile is made of the covered products, services, benefits, and features. Each need should ideally be covered by a product or a service. Each gain and pain should be addressed or remediated by a benefit or a feature of one of the covered products and services. Once needs, gains, and pains for each targeted customer segment or persona are addressed, a product manager can start planning which business capabilities, initiatives, business units, and or information concept is required to execute and deliver properly the products and or the service of a value proposition for each targeted persona. There are numerous ways to build a customer journey map. In this example, activities, touch points, and opportunities are described for each stage of the customer journey based on the customer's point of view. Each customer journey stage or moment can be associated to a corresponding value stage in a business architecture value stream. Each activity can be linked to a second level value stage. Each opportunity in a customer journey map can be linked to a business capability that enables value stages from a value stream within a business architecture model. Design thinking is often the method used to complete customer journey maps and build persona profiles. This is a very old method, and it's called SWOT analysis or SWOT assessments. They have been around for over half a century, and they are still used successfully today because they're simple. Here you can see strengths and weaknesses for the initiatives, the opportunities, and the threats if should you decide to do nothing. This is about it. I hope that you have enjoyed the content of this presentation. In our upcoming webinars, we'll be able to spend a lot more time on each subject and show you many relevant examples by industry. Thanks a lot.